And our next story is about the Taliban. It's proving to be a menace for Pakistan, the same Pakistan which vouched for the Taliban. It's now caught in a bitter border standoff with it, standoff which is only escalating. Look at what happened on Sunday. An attack along the Pakistan border killed over 6 Pakistani civilians and injured at least 17 others. Who was behind this attack? Who else but the Taliban? A group that Pakistan fed and nurtured. A group that Pakistan said had mended its ways. The same group is now attacking Pakistani civilians. It looks like a classic case of chickens coming home to roost. Islamabad says this attack was unwarranted. There was no trigger from their side. It was the Taliban which launched indiscriminate fire and unleashed a spree of unprovoked bombing. The images are disturbing, to say the least. They show victims being carried on stretchers, ambulances rushing to the attack site, firefighters trying to douse the flames as buildings lie covered in debris and ashes. The eyewitness accounts are equally distressing. People say they had to remove mortar shells themselves. Listen to this.
This mortar fell from the Afghan side. I was very near it. I picked it up and removed this. This is like catching the enemy alive. By the grace of Allah, we are ever ready to sacrifice our lives for our country.
When we were at the crossing border into Pakistan, the firing started. After that, we ran towards the warehouses. First, a mortar shell landed, which was directed towards the village. It caused a fireball. A large group of people were standing outside the petrol pump with us. Again, a mortar shell landed and caused a huge fireball. After that, I lost consciousness and I don't know what happened.
So where exactly did this attack unfold? At the Chaman Border in Pakistan's Balochistan province. This is one of the 4 major border checkposts between Pakistan and Afghanistan and a key route for bilateral trade between the two sides. Thousands of people from both sides use it daily. But in recent weeks, tensions have spiked here with frequent reports of attacks and cross-border firing from both sides. For instance, on the 13th of November, an unidentified Afghan man killed a Pakistani guard here, and this led to both sides open firing at each other. Pakistan responded by shutting the border and blocking all cross-border trade. The issue remained unresolved for weeks. It was only towards November end that the border was reopened. Barely 2 weeks on, there has been another attack, this time from the Taliban itself. And the question is why? And the answer depends on who you ask again. Like I said, Pakistan says the attack was unwarranted, but the Taliban do not agree. They say Pakistan provoked first. How exactly? By trying to stop them from building a new border checkpost. At least that's what the Taliban are claiming. They say that Pakistani authorities had been installing new fences for weeks now, but when they did the same, the Pakistani side objected. And this led to a quarrel which ended in violence. That's not even all. The Taliban say that they even lost one soldier, with some Afghans suffering minor injuries. So who do we believe? Well, given how we are talking about Pakistan and Afghanistan here, a terror state and a terror regime, it's really hard to tell who's speaking the truth. But here's what we do know, and this wasn't the first border clash of this kind. It definitely will not be the last. Here's why. For months now, Pakistan and Taliban have been arguing over the Durand line, this 2,700-kilometer long border which separates the two sides. This border was drawn by the British, but it was rejected by the Afghans, primarily because it divided the Pashtun communities. A historical headache that has resurfaced since the Taliban came to power. The Taliban have refused to endorse the Durand line. They say there should be no borders among Muslims, especially not among the Pashtun community, which comprises Taliban's ranks. In fact, why just the Taliban? Since 1947, successive Afghan governments have rejected the Durand line. They have promoted the cause of one Pashtunistan, the home of Pashtuns. Pakistan did not want this, so what did it do? It built seminaries, promoted radicalism and armed the Pashtuns. Islamabad hoped that this would make Islamic nationalism overshadow Pashtun nationalism. In fact, combating the creation of a Pashtun state was a constant preoccupation of General Zia-ul-Haq, the chief of the Pakistan army who seized power in the 1978 coup. Between 1978 and 1988, General Zia opened close to 1,200 madrasas in Pakistan, 1,200 seminaries in 10 years. Most of them were in Pakistan's northwest. These madrasas were used to suppress Pashtun nationalism, and around the same time, Afghan jihad was gaining momentum. The Mujahideen, with the support of the United States, were waging their holy war against the Soviets. Pakistan backed the Mujahideen, killed two birds with one stone: loyalty from the Mujahideen and money from the Americans. The CIA funneled money and equipment to the ISI. The ISI trained the Afghan Mujahideen. In the 1990s, when the Soviets had left, the Mujahideen crossed the border to Pakistan and enrolled at the Darul Uloom Haqqaniya, Pakistan's University of Jihad, a sprawling Islamic seminary situated barely 35 miles from Peshawar. The Darul Uloom Haqqaniya is essentially a terror factory. It openly teaches Muslims about jihad and routinely churns out dreaded terrorists, including the top brass of the Taliban. They were exposed to the Deobandi movement and radicalized further, and then they went back to Afghanistan and formed the Taliban. There are quite a few of them. Mullah Akhtar Mansoor, the co-founder of the Taliban, was from the Darul Uloom. Mullah Omar, another co-founder, had an honorary doctorate from the Darul Uloom. Plus, the Taliban's newly appointed water and energy minister, Mullah Abdul Latif, the telecommunication minister, Najibullah Haqqani, the education minister, Abdul Baqi Haqqani, and the minister of refugees. Of course, they have one, Khalil-ur-Rahman Haqqani. The Darul Uloom Haqqaniya is their alma mater. And it doesn't even end here. The seminary got open state support from Islamabad and sent terrorists to wage the holy war in Afghanistan. That said, the Darul Uloom is just one piece of this puzzle. For decades now, Pakistan has been running a sophisticated network of financial, political, diplomatic, and military support to the Taliban in order to make Afghanistan its sixth province. I'm not saying this, Pakistan's own leaders are. Listen to this statement by Sheikh Rashid Ahmad, where he openly admits that the Taliban were bred by Pakistan's deep state.
और ये जितने नौजवान यहाँ मुहाजिरों में पढ़ते रहे, कई बड़ी माजरत के साथ, मैं अब वजीर दाखिला हूँ, रेलवे में होता तो शायद और ज़्यादा बातें कर सकता था, मेरी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है। कई ये तालिबान लीडर जो टॉप हैं वो पैदा पाकिस्तान में हुए, पढ़े पाकिस्तान में। इसमें तो पाकिस्तान की खिदमात हैं कि इनको हमने तालीम दी और अब भी कई पढ़ रहे होंगे।
You heard that. It was our service to bring them up. This is a former Pakistani minister talking. The question is, what did Pakistan expect in return from this service? The attainment of strategic depth against India, using the Taliban to further its Kashmir obsession. This was the prime objective of Pakistan's Afghanistan policy, a policy that is now proving to be costly, with consequences that Pakistan is not ready to bear. Because this is not a Taliban that depends on Pakistan for its survival anymore. This is a Taliban in power, a Taliban the Americans call businesslike and professional. It might just become the tail that wags the dog, because old loyalties rarely stand in the way of fresh temptations. And this attack along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border only proves this. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.